Right, thank you for joining us. I'm Nancy Kachingira.
And my name is Wilson Buru, and right now we cross over to Ian Wafula, who is in Garissa, to give us the latest reports from there. Ian, if you can get us from there, what is the situation on the ground right now?
Well, thank you very much, Wilson and Nancy. If going by what we are having right now is anything, I mean, this is the calmest we have experienced today. There has been so much tension throughout the day, right from when we got here. I mean, the streets, Garissa being a business hub, it was deserted, no movement in and out of town. The only people who were mostly moving in and out of town were mostly police officers and also members of the press. Otherwise, the mood was very tense. We had gunshots from occasionally with about sequences of like 30 minutes. They would hear quite some heavy gunshots. Now the thing that we were not able to go near was the university, because it is near a residential home. So accessing it only has one road which accesses the university, and then surrounding the university are quite a number of homes. So the Kenya Defence Forces cordoned off the area, and they were the only ones who were able to go near. Now the sad bit about this, Wilson, is that, for instance, we came across this lady who her name was Amina. She had been trapped inside her house since the whole of the area had been cordoned, and her house happened to be within the meters of the scene. Amina was expectant, and in fact she had just gone into labor when the gunshots began at 5 a.m. and we found her and her family trying to seek a solution. There are no vehicles going to this point, so we just had to volunteer our own vehicle to take her to hospital. These are some of the problems that the people have been going through today. Hardly any business happening. There's also been we also managed to see at least two, the Garissa University bus transporting a number of students who we believed were some of the hostages who had been taken into, who had been just rescued from the scene. And if I can look at this situation in terms of the numbers, earlier on we had an update from Joseph Kaiseri, and he said that indeed 70 students have died from this attack. We've also had around 79 of them injured, while only 300 of them had been rescued. 350 of them are yet to be accounted for. The school had a total number of 850 students. I also understand that in a bit we're going to have Joseph Kaiseri, who will be joining us at this point live to just give us another update. Wilson?
Well, thank you very much, Ian, for that update, and we will get back to you in a short while as we continue to give this story the full coverage it deserves. Stay on the line. We will be back to you in a short while. And in the midst of the breaking news on that attack in Garissa, the president gave a directive that will no doubt raise questions regarding the separation of powers between the executive and the judiciary.
Meanwhile, Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri gave an update of the attack with no clear indication on the number of attackers, almost 16 hours after the launch of that attack.
Linda Ogutu looks at the government response to an attack that just adds to the number of casualties Kenya has suffered in the name of terrorism.
Almost 9 hours after the attack and hostage situation began in Garissa, the head of state and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces addressed the nation and gave a directive.
I also further direct the Inspector General of Police to take urgent steps and ensure that the 10,000 recruits whose enrollment is pending promptly report for training at the Kenya Police College in Kiganjo.
The president taking the country back to a High Court ruling in October 2014, a ruling that quashed the recruitment of 10,000 police recruits, with the court's ruling that the process was tainted with corruption, irregularities, and blatant violation of the Constitution. The president seemingly pointing an accusing finger at that ruling that denied the country more police officers that would have quashed the kind of attack witnessed today.
I take full responsibility for this directive. We as a country have suffered unnecessarily due to shortage of security personnel. Kenya badly needs additional officers, and I will not keep the nation waiting.
under Section 59, 51(1) of CAP.
The doctrine of separation of powers clearly overlooked by the head of state, who only yesterday assured the country and indeed the world that Kenya is a safe and secure country.
I have not heard them issue travel advisories against the British who go to Paris. I have not heard them issue travel advisories against other European countries that have also been victims of terrorism. The whole world today is under threat from terrorism.
As the attack was unfolding, the man in charge of the police force, Joseph Boynet, issued a press brief in which he said a joint force composed of the National Police Service and other security agencies arrived and were engaged in an elaborate process to flush out the gunmen from the hostels. Boynet and the CS of Interior would both make their way to Garissa to oversee the rescue operation in an attack that comes barely 4 months since Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaissery took up the Interior Ministry docket.
90% of the threat has been eliminated. We have been able to confirm that 4 terrorists have been killed. The number of the terrorists was never confirmed.
Do hereby issue curfew orders in the counties of Tana River, Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera.
In his address to the nation, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Uhuru Kenyatta, the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Joseph Nkaissery, and the Inspector General, Joseph Boynet, did little to calm the nerves of a citizenry that is slowly getting tired of attacks within their borders. Question is, how long can the words hold? Linda Ogutu, KTN.
It is certainly an unimaginable tragedy that took place today, and one can only think what the relatives of the people who were in the midst of this attack and also those who are still unaccounted for are thinking. Well, it's very hard to ask a question about this, but we just want you to share your thoughts and your opinions on today's terror attack in Garissa as our big cue this evening.
That's right, and you can do that by sending an SMS with your message and your opinion to the number 22155, or you can tweet us at Wilson_Mburu, at Kachungira, or at KTN, and we'll be sampling your views as the bulletin continues.
Now, a former Kenyan teacher is the man believed to be behind today's Garissa attack, and that is according to security forces here in Kenya.
But just who is he and what is his strategy? KTN's Asha Mwilu digs deeper into this.
This man, Mohammed Mahmoud Kuno, also known as Sheikh Mohammed or Duliadin or Gamadere, is said to be the mastermind behind the Garissa University attack. And now the Kenyan government is offering 20 million shillings for his head. Kuno, a Kenyan and a former teacher in Garissa, is said to be on the run since December last year. When the Al-Shabaab unleashed its grip of terror at the heart of Nairobi in 2013, security analysts saw the attack as a reinvention of the terror group. But in the months that would follow, Al-Shabaab would be in for a shaky ride. The African Union-backed troops, AMISOM, turned up the heat in Somalia.
Our intention is to attack Koriole. We are attacking Koriole and taking it over. So it's 1, 2, and 3.
By March 2014, AMISOM had recaptured the strategic town of Koriole in the Lower Shebele region, kicking out the Al-Shabaab out of an area they had controlled for 5 years. Before the first anniversary of the Westgate attack, Al-Shabaab were being cornered from all directions. Away from the independent Somaliland and the semi-autonomous Puntland, the African troops were in full control of the strategic Mogadishu, Baidoa, and Kismayo. Forces supported by the Somali government controlled this area, while this northern part of Somali had the pro-government administrations. Al-Shabaab strongholds remained in this southern area.
Al-Shabaab now, they have a tremendous pressure from other side of the border. They lost a lot of towns to concern military effort by African Peacekeeping Force and Somali National Army. Now the only way they can survive is border between Kenya and Somalia.
The Al-Shabaab appointed Kuno to head its external operations, especially here in Kenya. In November 2014, 28 people were killed while traveling from Mandera in a bus attack. Just a month after that, 36 quarry workers were massacred by the Al-Shabaab, also in Mandera. Now, the Garissa campus siege points to a similar trend. Kuno is believed to be the brains behind all these attacks in northern Kenya. Although the group suffered a big blow in September last year when a US drone attack killed its leader Ahmed Abdi Godane, and when thereafter succession wrangles threatened its very existence, the threat that Al-Shabaab poses cannot be underestimated. Until Kenya can contain the activities of masterminds like Mohammed Kuno, the Al-Shabaab with its strong ties to Al-Qaeda will remain a massive threat. Ashamwilu, KTN.
Well, good evening. When I talked to you this evening at about 7:15, I told you that the operation was still ongoing. 90% of the operation or the threat has been eliminated. I want now to confirm to Kenyan that the operation has ended successfully. All the terrorists were killed. The 4 terrorists were killed. And I want to thank our boys, the officers, both the Reiki team from JSU and SF from KDF for a job well done. They deserve our accolade, and we are very, very proud of them. Sadly though, this is a very sad day for Kenya. We, as I speak, it's unfortunate that the terrorists were able to kill young, good citizen very early in the morning before the operation started. And as I speak to you, it is sadly that we lost 147 lives. And it is very unfortunate that it has happened. And I want personally to send my personal condolences to the families of the lost, those who lost their loved one, and also to wish the injured a speedy recovery. We are now planning the evacuation. We have started the evacuation. Tomorrow morning, the NYS are sending buses to come and collect the students, to take them to their homes. I have the Minister for Education here with me. They will be able to tell us the position of the university. And we are evacuating the injured. We are having many aircraft. Kenya Air Force aircraft are arriving very early in the morning. Our friends from Phoenix and the police caravans are here. We'll be able to evacuate all the students. So I want to assure Kenyans that although this was a very unfortunate incident, your government is on and very much on to ensure that your security and that of your property is guaranteed. It has just happened like it happened anywhere in the world, and so we just wish that you need to know that your government is there to take care of your security. Thank you.
We know that there are many officers who are manning the operation. injured in the operation, and are there any who lost their lives?
Well, in any operation, things do happen, both on the enemy side, on the friendly forces side. And as I speak to you, in the morning, we lost one KDF officer and one policeman and 2 guards. We have some injuries, some very serious and some light injuries, which in an operation like this, and that's what I'm saying, where I comment the security officers for a job well done. That was much I can tell you now. Thank you. There are only 4 attackers and they are all killed. You also need to know that these attackers strap themselves with IDs, all the bombs, and as the officers who got injured, as they shoot these terrorists, the terrorists just blow because they are live bombs. So some of the shrapnel which was strapped on the bodies of the terrorists is the one which injured the officers.
And Waziri, just before you go, as you came with students in various sections, rather quarters, they were camping there, for instance, here at the police station. Now this is, the night has come in. Are there any measures that have been taken to shelter them from the cold?
Absolutely. That is one of the things we have done. We started organizing the comfort of the students. As I speak to you, there are 518 students who have been accounted for, and all of them are in the military compound. We have given them, and I do thank the governor here. I do thank the governor here for the job his county government has done, that we are able to provide blankets, we are able to feed the students. They are all very comfortable at tents in the military compound. And very, very early tomorrow, as I told you, that the national NYS are bringing in about 10 buses, so we'll be able to evacuate these students. So everything is in place, and everything has been taken care of.
Is this 20 million bounty that is placed on the head of the mastermind, this particular attack, in fact, Mahmoud Mohammed, is he among the terrorists who were killed, or is he someone else?
Well, I don't have the names of the terrorists, so I can't answer that question.
There are also reports that the UK had issued travel advisories prior to this incident. Do we know perhaps if they might have had intelligence and we didn't?
As I said earlier, the government was on top of this, the security situation in the country, and this incident which happened today is one of those incidents which surprise any country. And so I can assure you I will be able to give you a definite answer when a complete audit has been done. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good night and God bless.
There you have it, Joseph Nkaiseri just confirming to us that the long day's activities have just finally come to an end. This is after the terror attack has been put to an end. He is confirming that at least 147 students have died from this incident. He's also confirming that 4 of the terrorists have also been neutralized. Nkaiseri, they are confirming to us that the terror attack rather has finally been neutralized, and he does confirm further that we no longer have a hostage situation. Sad, however, to hear that at least 147 students have died from this particular incident. It is not any different from what we've seen previously. You remember the 21st of September terror attack at Westgate, where we lost 67 people. This is, however, the largest number we have ever lost in one particular terror attack. And of course, this is a great hit too. Remember, Nkaiseri just came into office the other day, and Joseph Boynet is also new to the office. This is a huge task. We need answers. We need to know how these gunmen were able to go into the school. This is some of the questions the residents of Garissa will also be asking. just to repeat again, a total of 147 people have died from this particular incident and a number of others injured. 4 of the terrorists have also been neutralized. Now, we also had a lot of activities that were going on during the day, and we managed to just put together a story that will bring to the fore as to what was happening through the day, and we're going to play that story right now for you to see. This was the nearest anyone could get towards the Garissa campus siege scene, only open to ambulances and police vehicles. But the occasional gunshots filling the air were a clear indication that the crossfire was far from over. Even further, heavy military presence only confirmed the magnitude of the attack. Homes near the scene were cordoned off. Amina, not her real name, had just gone into labor when the gunshots started at 5 a.m. 8 hours later, when he walked into her compound, she had not received any help. The only available vehicle was ours.
Watu wote wanatoroka. Na wale walipita kwa barabarani, wanashikwa, wanalalishwa chini. Ile wanaangaliwa hali yao vile ambayo wanatembea.
Nilikuwa nakaa hapa karibu na university. Sasa nikaona wavulana walikuwa wanaruka kwa fence. Nikazuia wavulana, nikauliza iko shida gani. Wanasema kuna watu wameingia ugaidi, wameingia ndani ya hapa kwa gate. Kuna msikiti ndogo hapa. Watu wanasali kutoka nje. Alafu wakati walifungulia gate, waliingia by force. Alikuwa wavulana 4. Wakaingia ndani, wakapiga risasi watu wote. Wale wa studenti wengine wakahijack, wamepeleka hapa kwa room saizi wako. Lakini I'm sure 100% walikuwa watu 4 wako ndani saizi. Ya kwamba wanaua kila mtu, hata wewe kama wewe ni Muislamu wanaua.
Na hii watu tuwezi sema ni Waislamu na wala Wakristo. Tunajua kwamba lengo lao ni kuua tu mtu. Na tunasikia huzuni vibaya sana vile wanafanya watu, na tuko na shida kwa hii watu. Lakini ubaya ya polisi na jeshi kutenda kwao kwa kazi tunaona si nzuri. Bado asubuhi saa 12 mpaka sasa wanangangana watu 4 vile tunaambiwa. Sasa watu 4 wanangangana, watu 4 watalinda Kenya mzima kweli? Wanaweza linda Kenya mzima? Watu ambao wanakosa kutoa watu 4 hapa. Tangu asubuhi saa 12 nilisalia kwa hiyo msikiti. Kutoka hivi ndo nimesikia hiyo kitu imetendeka kwa hapa.
Back at the scene, the crowd was getting unbearable, forcing the Kenya Defence Forces to rough up anyone they came across. What you're seeing behind me is the second university bus, which is being escorted right from the university, of course, with a lot of. What you've just seen is the university bus, which is being escorted heavily. We believe that some of the occupants of this bus are the hostages. This is the second time we're seeing the bus moving from the school. Behind me is also the Kenya Red Cross, who are part of the team that is part of the emergency response, just trying to rescue some of the victims of this attack. Remember, at this point, we do not know how many people are still trapped within the school. We also don't know how many people are dead out of this attack. The students rescued from the school were rushed to Garissa Hospital, while those in critical condition were airlifted to Nairobi. Well, there you go, Nancy and Wilson. Just as you have seen earlier on, there was a lot of confusion, so much tension, and hardly anyone knew what was happening. But as of right now, Kaiseri has just confirmed that finally 16 hours of an operation has finally come to an end. But unfortunately, 147 victims of this Garissa campus siege and a number of others injured. He has also said that the Ministry of Education, through Jacob Kaimenyi, will also communicate further about the institution's position on this matter, and perhaps even get to tell us why this particular institution was a target and who are these 4 people who are behind this incident. We shall continue to bring you updates from location. Tomorrow we shall also be engaging with some of the victims, some of the residents of this area, so that we also get to understand why this was happening, why Garissa University campus, and among many other questions. Back to you, Nancy and Wilson.
Thank you very much, Ian, for keeping us up to date, and do stay safe. Of course, our hearts just dropped hearing that number, 147. Between 2011 and 2014, Al-Shabaab killed just over 300 people. Now they've added 147 to that number in just one day.
And looking at the statistics, since the 1998 bomb blast here in Nairobi, That must be now the highest number of people killed by a in a terrorist attack at one time since 1998. 147 people. It's a very unfortunate event, and we certainly hope that something will be done. And another occurrence here that we are looking at is the issue of families who do not know the whereabouts of their relatives. And the Nairobi family will spend a sleepless night tonight, anxious about the safety of their daughter.
Now, the girl is a student at the Garissa University and is one of the 300 who are unaccounted for.
Sharon Mamanyi has more.
A phone call early Thursday morning would wake up Cyril from a peaceful sleep to a state of paralyzing anxiety.
By around 7, I was still asleep. Then I received a phone call from my girlfriend. She normally goes out earlier. So today she called me at 7, told me, "Are you watching?" Because I usually wake up very early in the morning to watch Morning Express. She told me there's some breaking news. Please look at it. Then I looked at it. Then the first thing is Garissa. Then Garissa comes to my mind. My sis comes to my mind. Then it came to the attack on the university. So I called my sister immediately. The first phone call she didn't pick. I called her for the third time. Aku pick. Then aka whisper sikusikia. Then phone ikenda off. I think alikata or something. I called her back. Then she picked, whispered again, but now this time I could hear something. She was telling me, "Tuko kwa room chini ya bed, tunaweza wawa." Then akakata tena.
Unable to keep in touch with his sister, Cyril got in touch with a friend in Garissa, asking him to go and assess the situation.
It's like I've not seen her. Things have been haywire. I couldn't even trace her. So I told him, please look around. Enda kwa mahosi, enda uko kwa KDF, wanasema wamepelekwa camp wapi. Enda uko mpaka, go everywhere you think she may be taken to, including the Red Crosses, ambulances and stuff. Kaniambia, some places I've managed to go, like kwa hosi alingia mara ya first, ilo lipelekwa mara ya kwanza, but then she was not there. Then mara ya pili akirudi kuangalia after another bunch of people wamepelekwa, then akapata polisi wamezuia. Now you can't access.
Feeling helpless, he has been glued to the TV the whole day, fasting for details, hoping for news to give him hope.
I was supposed to be somewhere around JKIS for a shoot, but I'm not there because this is more important. So I've been watching news for me to be at least updated on what exactly is happening. I was thinking of what if I go there right now, but I was saying, okay, even those who are there cannot be allowed to access that place. What will make me go there and access the place? So I'm still banking on the information from the media.
In his words, Cyril wishes that it were all a nightmare, one that started with a phone call.
When it touches you directly, it's totally a different story. No one would understand except yourself.
As I speak with Cyril, the anxiety that he's going through is hard to fathom, and it is the kind of anxiety that the family and friends of the more than 500 students unaccounted for are going through right now. Their hope being that the situation will be resolved at the soonest and in the best possible way. Sharon Mamanyi, KTN, in Umoja, Nairobi.
Very sad tale indeed there. Now, today's siege of the Garissa University College may go down as the worst in recent memory, with more dead in a single attack than the Westgate attack of September 2013 or the Mpeketoni attack of July last year.
But are there more similarities between these attacks, and did Kenya learn from them? John Allen Namo reports.
Almost 2 years separate what could be two of the Al-Shabaab's most brazen attacks. But similarities between these two attacks make for eerie reading on some levels. Gunmen entering the Garissa University campus just as they did at Westgate. 67 murdered at Westgate.
But unfortunately, we lost quite a sufficient number of lives.
At at least 70 murdered in Garissa today.
They're using lone wolves, they're coming in, using firearms, light weapons, shooting people, killing people, and then getting killed themselves.
Then there's Kenya security apparatus response. The counter-offensive is said to be led by a detachment of the KDF's Ranger Strike Force, with the police on the margins of the combat zone. Given how Westgate turned out, those similarities would make an analyst nervous. But there also are key differences.
We held multiple agency security teams coming in, and they were all working together under the same command, as opposed to what we witnessed at Westgate, where we had fractures.
Every official statement so far has come from the Office of the Inspector General,
as I speak to you now,
the Cabinet Secretary for the Interior, or President Uhuru Kenyatta, and so far there have been no contradictions. A focus on the capture of Mohammed Mahmoud Kuno, alias Gamadere, who is also said to have masterminded the Mandera attacks of November last year, came earlier today, unlike information around the suspects responsible for the Westgate attack. But questions like those that hung around Westgate about prior intelligence remain. For instance, the information about an impending attack that universities across Kenya paid heed to in advisory statements to their students and staff.
I have not heard them issue travel advisories against the British who go to Paris.
Or the travel advisories issued by the UK and Australia about the same. Did this information inform any of Kenya's actions?
For the last 3 months, we were expecting this kind of an attack, and then we did not do anything to preempt the attack. We did not do anything to stop it.
It would appear that Kenya's security apparatus has learned from the mistakes it committed during the Westgate siege of September the 21st, 2013. Mistakes that back then cost lives. But with so much yet to be known about what exactly went on in Garissa today, is the learning curve of the security apparatus steep enough to save lives this time around? John Alenamu, KTN, Nairobi.
Certainly a lot of parallels to be drawn there. But now let's hone in on Garissa itself, because this is certainly not the first time that this particular area has been attacked. Edith Kimani, you're going to be telling us a little bit more about what the numbers are saying, aren't you?
Exactly, and that's exactly where we're beginning. I mean, that number again, 147, it's difficult to imagine that a parent would have to go through over 100 bodies to try and find their loved one. But unfortunately, this is not the first time that this is happening in Kenya, and certainly not the first time that it's happening in Garissa. Let's look at what the numbers are saying. 2,000 people have been arrested in the entire country between November of 2011, when Kenyan troops went to Somalia, and today. And out of those, it is estimated that around 1,500 of them have been arraigned in court. How many people have gotten sentences? It is still not clear. Now, this data that we're using is from the ATPU and also from one of our reporters here at the Standard newspaper. Now, the people injured in that time period, 1,075 people, and those who were killed, 370. Now, this figure does not include the number of teachers who were killed in Mandera, and also the quarry workers, and of course today, 147 people. Now, it's very easy to look at this figure, 370 people, and passively ignore it. But I want you to take a minute and think about it when you're seated at home. Do a short exercise for me. Who are you seated next to? Who usually is in your home? How many are you? How many would it take to get to 370 people? How many homes would it take to get to 370 people? That's how many people have been killed by the Al-Shabaab in Kenya between 2011 and right now. Now, what's interesting is that Garissa and Nairobi combined account for half of all of these attacks. Later on, I'll be telling you just the number of counties which have been attacked and why it's so significant where it is they're positioned. But let's hone in again on Garissa and look at the previous attacks. And we begin in November 24th, 2011. 3 people killed when 2 grenades were hurled in Garissa. Now, in this particular incident, there were twin grenades, one at a hotel and another one at a shop. And before this, there were 3 other incidences, including one on the same day. So on the same day, there were 2 attacks. The second one having targeted a police convoy which was ambushed at an area known as Liboy. January 1st, 2012, when the rest of us were enjoying New Year's Eve, 5 people were dying in a grenade attack on a bar in Garissa. Now, this particular incident was very telling because of the methodology. Previously, the Al-Shabaab had been known to use grenades, hurl them in moving vehicles, so there was no contact between attacker and the person who was attacking them. However, this time round, they did use guns. 4 attackers in military uniform, again we're seeing a change of methodology here, hurled a grenade at revelers at a club known as Locust Nightclub, indiscriminately spraying bullets on those who tried to flee, and an administration police officer was among those ones who were killed. January 12th, the same year, just 11 days later, 6 people including police officers, killed in an attack at a police post. So we move on to the next one, July 1st, 2012. 17 people dead, killed in twin attacks. I personally covered this attack, and I will tell you, even a few days after it happened, the smell of death was still very heavy in this particular church. What was interesting is the location of this church. It was, the churches are located at a police post, and what happened is the attackers actually took guns from some police officers, indiscriminately spraying bullets at the people who were going at these churches. Some of those were Sunday school goers who were at the compound. 17 people killed in that incident, the worst in Garissa until now, when 175 people have been killed. 21st September 2012, we fast forward, 4 GSU officers injured in roadside explosion. 4th November, 147 rather, I beg your pardon, 4th November of the same year, 2012, 1 person killed, 14 injured in Utawala church attack. So we are seeing that the trend is changing from grenade attacks. They're now using guns, and more than that, they're becoming more daring. So we're seeing church attacks, we're seeing attacks on police posts, and now we're also seeing that the people who are being targeted are also different. Let's have a look at what happens after that. 19th November 2012, 3 KDF officers killed while changing attire, the result of which was KDF burning down the Garissa market. Now, why this is particularly interesting is that the 3 KDF soldiers were in plain clothes at the time, meaning that the attackers must have known them. On top of that, the attack happened at 12:30 during the day. So we're seeing a much more emboldened attacker. And this happened in 19th November of 2012. January 8th, 2013, a year later, 1 person killed in police car as a grenade is hurled in their vehicle. And then we move forward after that and have a look at January 16th, 2013. 4 people are killed in a restaurant in a gun attack. And April 18th, 2013, 6 people are killed in another restaurant attack. And in this particular incident, the victims were shot dead. 10 others were seriously injured by armed gunmen who stormed what was the Kwachege Hotel, and they just started shooting. And so remember earlier I had said that Garissa has been a hotbed for this sort of violence. And this map clearly shows it. Let me just move for a second. Now, the figures you're seeing is a percentage of attacks. So the rest of the country, really, the bits in yellow, have had no attacks whatsoever related to terrorism. And if you count with me, there's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 counties. 9 counties is where all of the attacks is happening. Most of them, 32% of them, happening in Garissa, followed very closely by Nairobi at 22%. Remember at the beginning of this Super Bowl, we said that almost half of the attacks have happened in these 2 counties. And then Mandera up top, and 6% we're seeing here, 16% in Mombasa, and cumulatively Kilifi, Kwale, and Tana River making up 1% of the attacks. If you look carefully, all of these counties are along the Somali border, the Kenya-Somalia border. And so there's clearly a problem. There's clearly a problem right here. And that's the question I'll be posing to my guests this evening. We'll be discussing why exactly this border, which is extremely porous, has not been sealed, and why we still have these attacks years after Kenya went into Somalia. And in the studio, I'll be speaking to Andrew Franklin, who will be joining us from our I&M studios. Abdi Wahab Sheikh, who is a security analyst. He'll also be speaking to us. Byron Adera, formerly of the Special Forces. He might know a thing or two about how the KDF responds to these attacks. And on the phone, we'll also be having the Foreign Affairs Minister from the Republic of Somalia, Mr. Abdusalam Hadlier Omer. Do stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to KTN Prime. Obviously, everyone trying to wrap their heads around that figure that CS Joseph Nkaiseri has just announced. 147 people killed brutally under the hands of 4 militias. In studio with me, Abdi Wahab Sheikh, who is a security analyst. Thank you for joining us. Byron Adera, formerly of the Special Forces Kenya, and Andrew Franklin, who's a security analyst, joining us from our City Center studios. Gentlemen, I'd like to begin with your reaction to that. Abdi Wahab, I know for a fact that you were extremely infuriated, especially when CS was saying that our boys have done a good job.
It's a sad day for the Kenyans. It's a sad day for the northern people. It's very unfortunate, uncalled for, and totally inconsistent with Islamic teachings. What I'm saying basically is, it's 4 boys can kill 147, students in one campus. It's very unfortunate. It's the only university we had in northern Kenya. So basically, what I'm saying is, since Al-Shabaab, push out from the southern part of Somalia. And in fact, they are now getting, Northern Kenya became a breeding grid for Al-Shabaab. So it's now the only way forward is the Kenyan must set up a special forces, because what the country is facing for is a faceless militia. So, what I have seen, there is no coordination among the security apparatus.
Okay.
What I have seen, there is no coordination between the governor and county commissioner. So engaging this, what you call, military personnel in such kind of things, in the local affairs, I don't think so will assist the situation anymore.
All right. I'd just like to bring in the Foreign Affairs Minister from the Republic of Somalia, Mr. Abdusalam Hadliye Omer. We've just been told by our Interior Cabinet Secretary here that 147 people have died by the hand of the Al-Shabaab. What is your reaction to this?
Our reaction is we are outraged. It's appalling. To commit such crime against innocent civilians, we are completely shocked, and we are in solidarity with Kenyans who lost loved ones.
Now, speaking of solidarity, can you please tell us what the Somalia government is doing specifically to ensure that the menace of the Al-Shabaab is eliminated once and for all?
It's a regional problem, it's a world problem, it's our problem, both Somalis and Kenyans, and we have been fighting them, and we will continue to fight and stand next to our brothers and sisters in Kenya. It's wrong what has happened, it's wrong, and it's a heinous crime.
Mr. Foreign Affairs Minister, do you think enough is being done to fight terrorism, not just in Somalia or Kenya, but also within the region? Are we working together well enough to eliminate this?
There is 20,000 African troops in Somalia, including your young like Somalia. Many Somali army are fighting. Everyone is fighting. It's very difficult to fight at the war where you don't see the enemy and the enemy wants to die. It's very, very difficult to fight at the war, but everything has been done, and we will defeat these terrorists.
All right, thank you very much. That is Abdusalam Hadliye Omer. He's a Foreign Affairs Minister from the Republic of Somalia. But coming back into the studio, Byron, he's repeated something that Abdi Wahab said, that this is an amorphous attacker that we're facing. But having been in the Special Forces, surely, isn't there any tactical training on how to extract these people, get information from them?
Thank you, Edith. I'd like to, first of all, condole with the families of those who lost their lives, and of the gallant soldiers that also in the line of duty lost their lives. But having said that, I'd like to state that we have a fully fledged Special Forces unit. I mean, as reported by the CS, there's the presence of that unit. But I'd like to mention the fact that for this war to be won, there are glaringly clear gaps in the attainment of intelligence, the use of that intelligence appropriately, and in coordination of the arms, the different arms that respond to an organized, deliberate or direct action that's be taken to either control before these attacks actually happen, so the proactiveness during an attack, so a direct action that's taken, and in such a swift, secure, and security conscious manner that would reduce the casualties first of all, and liberate and destroy the attackers.
Okay.
So what we're seeing basically is I'm happy that we did end this within 1 day. It didn't extend to what we saw in Westgate.
Well, some people would argue that it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Exactly, and that brings me back to the point, the proactiveness that should be there. So the consumption of the intelligence that's availed to people, recognizing the vitality of that intelligence, the necessity that comes with passage of that intelligence to check out to people who are supposed to get in the first place, and beyond the coordination of different arms to respond appropriately.
Okay.
So we limit, chances of it, escalating and getting to what we've not just witnessed today.
All right. Now, Andrew Franklin, I'd just like to bring you in and come back to a separate issue. Now, intelligence is more preventative than anything, but so is a curfew, which has been implemented by IG Joseph Boynet, extending to the 16th of April in Garissa. Do you think this will work? Do curfews work?
Well, yes, curfews do work if you have properly trained personnel to react to anyone who's breaking the curfew. There's a serious problem of putting curfews on such a huge geographical area, and I do understand, however, why the curfew has now been extended across into Tana River. It seems obvious that these attackers were in the country. They have been in the country because Garissa is so far away from the border. For them to have amassed that level of weapons and munitions, that has to be cached already in the country. So a curfew could work, in fact, in this case, assuming that the police and the Kenya Defense Forces are able to properly coordinate night patrols, use of available air assets, many of which we don't seem to have, and the ones we do have, we don't seem to use. I think it would be a perfect opportunity for the Cabinet Secretary to deploy the Kenya Forestry Service Cessna, which is full of thermal imaging equipment, for night patrols. But let's keep this very clear. These attackers did not come from Somalia. They are in our country. They are based in hides. They've gone to ground, and just as with the attacks in Mandera, they're already here in and among the population or in some of the more remote areas.
Okay, Andrew, I want to put a pause on the conversation right now because I want us to delve into the issue of intelligence. And Sam Ogina has actually prepared a story for us. And he's asking the question, could the Garissa campus attack have been foiled if the country paid keen attention to intelligence reports contained within travel advisories issued by Britain and Australia? So this is the question being asked tonight. After Kenyan authorities rubbished the advisories claiming that sinister motives were behind the Western nations. So as KTN Sam Ogina reports, the intelligence briefs contained the advisories were quite specific on the vulnerable regions.
The British Foreign and Commonwealth Office Terror Advisory specifically mentioned Garissa, so it appears there was intelligence on the impending attack. Intel that perhaps could have scuttled the siege and prevented the loss of life. But roped into playing global politics, the government lost sight of securing homeland security, instead focused on a tough war with its former colony, Britain.
As government, we strongly believe that these advisories are driven by considerations other than security.
A week ago, Britain and Australia issued travel advisories to Kenya warning of an imminent threat in the northeastern and coastal regions. The intelligence relied upon indicated that there was a terror plot against crowded locations in the country. The British intelligence brief was quite explicit on Garissa. Dispatched on the 27th of March 2015, the warning stated that there was a high threat of kidnapping in the areas within 60 kilometers of the Kenya-Somali border, quite specifically in Garissa County. But instead of focusing on the advisory's subject matter, the Kenyan government went on the offensive in its geopolitical warfare with Britain.
As much as they don't want their taxi drivers to come, President Obama has said he's coming.
A day after those remarks, disaster hits home where the European countries had warned about a hostage takeover at Garissa University College. So is the country playing global politics at the expense of homeland security? Does Kenya share intelligence information with her European counterparts, as was the practice before? Before the disastrous Mpeketoni attack, the same Western powers had issued travel advisories warning of the attack. But the Kenyan authorities would be caught flat-footed. To save face, the state blundered, claiming the attack was orchestrated by local politics.
The last attacks I have not heard them issue travel advisories against the British who go to Paris. I have not heard them issue travel advisories against other European countries that have also been victims of terrorism.
Interestingly, before today's attack, institutions of higher learning in Nairobi were on high alert, warning their students to be cautious. The University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University, and the United States International University, USIU, had flyers strewn around the institutions, all warning students to be on the lookout. Military sources, as usual, claimed there were intelligence briefs on the Garissa attack. The common denominator in the advisories against Kenya is security, while the government is crying foul over them. The Western nations appear spot on in their predictions. Maybe a time has come to shelve the geopolitical contest and focus on the global unifying factor, the war on terror. Samugina, KTN, Nairobi.
Well, asked about those travel advisories, we've just seen CS and Kaiseri almost dismiss the question. And my colleague Yvonne Okora did say that it's quite curious that a bounty was issued almost immediately after this attack happened against Mohammed Kuno. So the question is, if they knew he was a mastermind to this attack, why didn't they stop him earlier, Byron?
Okay, what we've witnessed is more of a very lofty disdain for information that's very precise, detailed, and we've removed our eyes off the goal. And continuously we've seen that perennially, people highly placed at the strategic levels dealing with useless things with regard to what we are supposed to be focusing on at that particular time. And this is a strategic misintent that is basically derailing the war on terror.
Okay. Andrew Franklin, I'm just curious, how should intelligence ideally be handled? Does it go through all security agencies? By what point does it get to, say, the county commissioner in Garissa?
Well, there seems to be, we don't seem to have a consistent flow of information coming or intelligence going into the security agencies. In connection with the Mandera attacks, the information, the intelligence that is gathered prior to the two massacres was dismissed as being political. The Mpeketoni attacks, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority claimed or stated that their investigation indicated that the National Intelligence Service had provided actionable intelligence to the police. My comments subsequent to the Mpeketoni on KTN and other media were simply that there seems to be someone sitting on the information within the police service, or there are no communications channels that are open. How they should be going is they could be going through the National Security Council, which is an act passed in 2012 that we've never implemented. This is the same body that could in fact design a comprehensive strategy, counterinsurgency, anti-terrorist strategy for our security services. But let's once again remind ourselves that we don't have a national police service in accordance with the act that was passed in 2011. We do not have a consolidated police service, so that even if you have the best intelligence in the world and you can't get it down and also get it down to the operators on the ground and have properly organized units to react when something does happen.
Okay.
I think we have a serious problem.
Andrew is raising the issue of capacity, that even if we had the best intelligence, you don't have the personnel on the ground, you don't have the proper equipment. So how do we reconcile this?
In fact, I agree with him. Unless the security can be improved, if the localists and officials work together. It seems now Al-Shabaab is better information gathering than Kenyan security apparatus. It's very clear. That's what I'm saying. The Kenyans must gain the hearts and the minds of the people on the ground. The Kenya must recruit the localists into the security apparatus, regular police force, the intelligence and so on and so forth. They can easily intermingle with local societies. They can easily get right information. So the problem is, unless we don't address the underlying grievances of the society, unless we gain the hearts and minds of the society, unless we recruit the localists into the regular police force and intelligence services, I think things are far from over.
Okay, but Abdul Wahab, it looks like we're dealing with a multi-headed monster here, because if you look at the regions being constantly and perennially attacked, they're marginalized. They have had deep mistrust for government and police for years. So how are they supposed to work with them?
You know, the Kenyans must address the historical injustice of the provinces. They have to. What we are facing today is a global problem. It's a regional problem. Al-Shabaab or terror group is a regional problem. It's an international problem. Unless you get the support of localists, unless you gain the hearts and minds of the society, unless you work together with the localists, I don't think so Kenyans can defeat such terror group in shortest time period. What basically I've been saying is, you know, we must have accurate information on the ground, or the leaders must spend a time in Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera. You know, you see, the minister will go to Garissa, stay there for a few hours and come back. You know, the minister must serve the people. He has to be there for 3 years, for 3 days or 4 days, so that he will get the right information on the ground. Again, I'm repeating again, the governor, the county commissioner, and the district security committee must work together.
Okay, but Byron, do you think that should be effective? Because we saw on our map 9 counties running all the way down from top to bottom. The CES can't be in all those counties all the time.
Absolutely not. I mean, he's built a structure, and there exists a structure, perhaps better in books than in reality. But I'd like to mention the fact that for intelligence to work effectively, and effectively is being in a position to do the right thing, and effectively being, for efficiency to do the right thing in a right manner. That's where we're missing the point. So we see a huge disconnect between the strategy at the top, which in some situations also misses the true picture, the reality. And so anything that's being rolled out in terms of policies that are supposed to affect either the information gathering, the winning of hearts and minds of the people, which is basically addressing the national will, which is one of the 5 elements of national power, which I think we've abused to a big extent. So we've dried the intelligence, wells by, engaging in acts that, abate rather than reinforce or improve information gathering. We've engaged in building, a capacity in ways that are a lot more confused that we would want to see them. So in terms of getting the raw materials, which I mentioned the last time, so the recruitment processes, and to a big extent, you would say, even at strategic level, would pass for, the magic answer. So we're looking at getting a lot of trainees, so a lot of guys to get through the recruitment process, which is flawed in the first place. So when you're campaigning for, we need additional security officers, I'm agree with that point. That's okay with me. But if the people themselves are wrongly selected, then you miss the big point. You're not going to get it right at the end.
So it starts from recruitment. Abdul Wasab, I know you have a point, but before we get to you, let me just draw in Andrew Franklin, because we're running out of time. Now, Andrew, there's that issue of the wall which is being built, and earlier in a conversation with you, you did say that the border between Kenya and Somalia stretches about 900 kilometers. So what's a few kilometers of a wall going to solve?
Well, the actual border, as the crow flies, is about 700 kilometers. But in fact, on the ground, if you were walking it, it'd be closer to 900. You raised the question, it's not a couple of kilometers, but even 200 kilometers of barrier planning is just a start. And that was in Mandera. Keep that in mind. We're not talking about a massacre of students in Mandera. We're talking about Garissa today. The fact is that that barrier planning also requires effective personnel deployment. To have effective personnel deployment, you have to have trained personnel. Earlier in the conversation, you asked me about intelligence. It's not just intelligence dissemination. Intelligence gathering starts with the guy carrying a rifle on the ground. It starts with the cop on the beat. It starts with reservists, reserve police, which we could recruit if we were implementing our National Police Service Act. Adding another 10,000, even highly qualified recruits to the police. Well, they will be in the field sometime in the neighborhood of April or June of 2016. We can start expanding the police reserve simultaneously with recruiting 10,000 new cops. For some reason, we're not implementing the National Police Service Act. So in fact, to get around to your question, a few kilometers of barriers here and there will do nothing with a hollow police force. In other words, if we don't have a Kenya Defense Forces with reserves who are properly trained and equipped, and eventually to hand over control to the police in accordance with the law of this country, the Constitution, the National Police Service Act, the Kenya Defense Forces Act, they all specify that civilian control is paramount. What is being said over and over again, winning hearts and minds, that can be accomplished if we have security in the frontline counties. On the other hand, if we do not recruit reservists from the populations in those counties, we will never have real community policing.
Andrew, let me bring in Abdi Wasab. We keep speaking about insecurity, and everything that comes up is what we don't have, what is not working. Is there anything at all that is right?
Let me tell you, let me go back to the issue. If you look at the geographical, the area of the northern Kenya, it's almost half of the country. If you look at the size of the Wajir, it's a Burundi and Rwanda combined. If you look at the size of Garissa, it's almost bigger than Netherlands. If you go to Madera County, it's bigger than what you call a state of Qatar. So we are dealing with a huge area. So now putting a wall, what's the significance of constructing a wall now? What's the significance of constructing a wall between the Somalia and the Kenya? We have to consider the norms, the value, and the culture of the society. We are pastoral societies. During the rain, we cross over into Somalia in pursuit of the, what they call a water ambassador. So unless you put together, the other thing is, it will cost the Kenyan taxpayers 23.6 billion shilling. Why can't we improve the infrastructure? Why can't we build the capacity of the security apparatus? Why can't we reconcile the warring class of Somali community in northern Kenya? Why can't we, empower the localists so that they can easily defeat such kind of threat? So I don't think it's any meaningful project. We just are putting a wall between the two states. That's one issue. The second issue is what is right. Still, we are united. Kenya, despite we face a lot of challenges, we are united. They try to divide our society along the religious lines. Look what's happening today. I fail to understand. They have been in a hotel in Mogadishu just 2 weeks ago. They killed thousands of the Muslims in the name of Islam. What's the difference between Muslims now they're releasing from the Garissa University College and those they kill in the what they call Makal Mukarrama Hotel?
Abdi Wasab, I would love to continue this conversation, but unfortunately we're out of time. Byron, a yes or no question. Do you think this war against the Al-Shabaab will ever be won?
Definitely, yes.
All right.
But you need some real commitment, getting the right picture of the reality, operationalizing and institutionalizing the good systems that we've had in place in the books, but that seem not to be implemented, and that's really sad.
Andrew, yes or no question. Do you think the war against the Al-Shabaab will ever be won in Kenya?
I don't think the war against Al-Shabaab will be won in Somalia, nor in Kenya if we continue with the same strategy, lack of strategy, and the same losing tactics that see another 147 innocent Kenyans killed by Al-Shabaab.
Well, sadly for their 147 families who now have to deal with burying their loved ones, the answer to that question from my panelists has been no. What do you think? Let us know on our Twitter handles. My name is Edith Kimani. I now hand you back to Nancy and Wilson.
Thank you, Edith. And of course, just to remind you, the hashtag we're using is Campus Siege, and you can give us your reactions on that. I'm just going to read a tweet here, this one from Linda Marcel. She says, I'm in tears because as a mother, bringing up kids only for them to die in campus that is so sad and unimaginable. And there's 147 families across the country feeling that way this evening. Now, this attack has elicited reactions not just locally but also from the international community.
Now, the German Deputy Ambassador to Kenya, Frido Silman, encouraged all parties in Kenya to cooperate closely to face the challenges raised by terrorism, even as he condemned the attack.
At the same time, the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office Minister for Africa, James Doddridge, said that the UK stands by the Kenyan government in its fight against terrorism and in its efforts to bring justice to those responsible for this barbaric act.
Now, a statement from the US Embassy said that the attack reinforces the need for all countries and communities to unite in the effort to combat violent extremism.
The United States remains a committed friend of Kenya, and back home, CORD leader Raila Odinga challenged the government to change tactics in the way that it deals with terrorism.
Raila said this is in appreciation of the fact that Kenya's enemies are changing tactics and targeting institutions that are largely unsecured but which hold the future of the country.
Right, and this, of course, is a story that's moving rather quickly. Quick update. The National Disaster Operations Center has now confirmed that all students have been accounted for. So at least
some good news coming in there.
There is some news that people know where their people are. Also, the US is offering assistance to Kenya to take on the Al-Shabaab group responsible for the Garissa attacks. So the story is developing rather quickly.
Keep your comments coming. The hashtag we're using tonight is Campus Siege, and we'll continue to take your views as the bulletin continues. Let's turn to graft now and the graft countdown. And it has now emerged during a parliamentary committee today, meeting that was held with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, that the confidential list that was given to the president was not compiled unanimously by the commission.
Now, CEO Haleki Wako revealed that the president insisted on having names added to an earlier report, even though the commission had not completed its investigations.
Aaron Ochieng attended the committee sessions and now reports.
One of the challenge, Dr. Boni, I think it would...
Justice and Legal Affairs Committees of both the National Assembly and the Senate summoned top Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission leadership with the row over the graft list that was presented to the President reaching fever pitch. It emerged through the Senate committee meeting that EACC CEO Haleki Wako came up with the names implicated in the fraud without consulting other EACC officials, but on firm instruction from President Uhuru Kenyatta through his private secretary Jomo Geshaga.
I went with that whole report in order to show that this is how things are and this is how we are progressing. But
which office is that?
State House.
Okay.
Yeah, State House. So when I went there, I ended up also with the same report engaging the president.
Deputy Chairperson Irene Kaino revealed to the committee that her life is in danger following the recent happenings, saying two top government officials have prevailed upon her to resign and continue to ask her to quit office. She also revealed that her former colleague, Professor Jane Onsongo, has been forced to leave the country for her safety.
Although I got intelligence which I can't share here with you, and that's why I decided not to resign, because I know the repercussion of resignation were going to be different. It was not resigning and you're free on the road. No, that was not it. And maybe that's why she decided to take off.
Chair Mumo Matemo also revealed to the committee that most of the allegations in the confidential report that was given to the president are at a preliminary stage, with some of the accused still not informed of what they are being accused of.
This was a report of the commission, which was updated on the request by the president and the law that you have for confidential purposes.
The committee wanted safety of the EACC members guaranteed by the state and accused the state of intimidating the commissioners.
What methodology did you use? In other words, how did you decide which case gets to the list and which one is left out of the list.
After all, Keno, they are not helping you. When the names come out, the people you think are going to kill you, they'll still kill you because they'll know you are the one who told us off the camera.
Meanwhile, the suspended Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Felix Kosgei was grilled for the better part of the day by EACC officials at Integrity House over corruption allegations against him and his ministry.
I'm clear in my mind that no single allegation that have been leveled against me is anything near me. All of them are fabrications from whoever, but they may leave that to the lawyers so that they can take it up from.
Another suspended public officer, the Chief Land Registrar Sarah Mwendwa, caused drama in the morning when she showed up for work at her office. The National Lands Commission boss tried to get her to leave, but she reportedly refused. It took the anti-corruption officers to remove her.
We are worried that this is happening when the cabinet has stopped this matter. We got the copy of the cabinet stoppage yesterday.
It could be termed as a perfect example of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing in regard to the list that was submitted to the president by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Aaron Ochen, KTN, Parliament.
Now let's take a look at the day's events from a business perspective. The Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA, has held talks with the presidency on improving competitiveness of the Kenyan economy through lowering the cost of living, easing the doing of business and creating jobs and improving productivity. During the fourth presidential roundtable, the stakeholders highlighted that improving governance and business regulatory environment, enhancing trade and investment and promoting human capital development and entrepreneurship are some of the areas that the government must pay special attention to. KEPSA highlights that the tourism sector and land reforms are some of the areas that require a governance makeover. On trade competitiveness, the alliance is urging the government to strengthen the strategy on exports and mechanisms to facilitate entry into new markets. The meeting also focused on the purge of corruption, with the president warning that those in the private sector they risk jail as well for taking bribes. The president last week launched a spirited campaign to weed out corruption within the government that is now being taken to the private sector. And the country's dairy sector accounts for 8% of the country's economic output. Despite this, small-scale farmers, who are really the backbone of the industry, have remained at the mercy of both hawkers and the large milk processing plants in the country. But things do seem to be changing as farmers join hands to set up small milk processing plants. This is a story of the Highlands Premium Dairies, the lifesaver for dairy farmers living in the Githunguri area.
Kenya's dairy industry is a dynamic one and plays an important economic and nutritional role in the lives of many. Small-scale farmers who are the backbone of the dairy industry in the country are also the most exploited players in the milk value chain, with poor pricing of their milk that is mostly bought by hawkers. Tired of missing out on the bounty, farmers in Githunguri, Kiambu County are pulling their resources together to operate a milk processing plant. Highlands Premium Dairy serves an estimated 4,500 farmers who are now able to get 35 shillings for a litre of milk, compared to a hawker who buys the milk at between 18 and 25 shillings.
Before we came into the picture, there were these hawkers who would come and buy milk and then give very poor prices, prices that could not sustain the animals.
Milk hawking has been a huge challenge in the country, with the government even outlawing the practice. It has, however, persisted in milk production areas, posing a threat to what people consume. With a milk production capacity of 50,000 litres a day, Highlands Dairies is not even able to meet its current market demand that stands at 75,000 litres a day, a clear indication of the potential of the dairy industry in Kenya.
Currently what you're working is to work with the farmers, partner with them, help them to increase their production.
The processor has now launched an extension service which is aimed at educating farmers on modern ways of raising high-quality breeds that mature faster and produce more milk, as it seeks to increase the amount of milk it receives from them per day, with the aim of meeting its demand and raising its market share.
Yogurt we normally do 1,500 per day, and for fresh
fresh milk we normally produce 25,000 to 24,000 liters per day.
The exponential growth of the Uplands Premiums Dairies Limited in the last 5 months is a clear indication that the dairy sector in the country is a vibrant one, and more investors across the country should invest in this kind of investment. Philip Keitan reporting for KTN from Githunguri, Kiambu County.
If you can't fight them, set up your own plant. Now, the push to rope in small and medium-sized enterprises continues to gather momentum, even as multinationals line up incentives that could see the fast-growing number of startups join the league of high-end technology companies. KTN's Abby Agina interviewed Microsoft's country manager, Kunle Awosika, on how the company is angling itself to seize this niche.
Small and medium-sized enterprises continues to receive much attention in the Kenyan context, even as more and more corporates line up to join in this growth. A lot remains undone, especially when it comes to access to finance and trading for SMEs. Well, I had a chat with the Microsoft CEO just to understand what can the SMEs do better for them to register better profits as well as survive in the very competitive Kenyan market.
One of the things that we've noticed is that SMEs basically fall down in the first year of doing their business, and this is primarily because of access to finance. Some of even the banks do not know the financial profile of SMEs, so do not lend to them. What we're trying to do is to increase the visibility, of SMEs, which we feel that will increase, the opportunities, within that space, for growth in the local economy.
Welcome to KTN Sports. Now, the Kenya Rugby Union board members are tonight scratching their heads after Safaricom disconnected its links to the Ngong Road-based union. Safaricom announced today that it has terminated their sponsorship for both the local Sevens circuit and the annual Safari Sevens tournament. Safaricom instead retained Athletics Kenya despite the athletics governing body recent boardroom wrangles, which Collymore said have not affected the federation's credibility.
Was elected as the new Kenya Rugby Union chairman a fortnight ago. Top on his agenda was the restoration of sponsors' confidence following a series of wrangles in the once credible union.
Can actually begin to talk to sponsors again, because sponsors are looking for value, sponsors are looking for visibility, sponsors are looking for recognition that they're sponsors.
But the union will have to arm itself with the best hunting tools in search for a new sponsor for the local Sevens circuit, as well as the annual Safari Sevens tournament that has been under the Safaricom armpit. Safaricom Chief Executive Officer Bob Collymore cited lack of transparency as the reason for their breakup with the union.
It's not about the chairman. Richard is a good guy. A lot of respect for him. Mwangi was a good guy. Have a lot of respect for him, but it didn't deal with the issues which had to be dealt with. We are now in April, and I haven't had the level of transparency and the clarity around some of the accusations.
Two of Kenya Rugby Union's board members were in the previous management led by Mwangi Muthee. The mobile phone service provider in a ton of events renewed its partnership with Athletics Kenya despite the federation's recent boardroom wrangles and accusations about financial mismanagement.
They've got their issues. They've got their boardroom wrangles, but that's nothing to do with me. They will sort that issue out. And as the president said today, every house tends to have internal wrangles. That's not the issue. It's not about who is sitting as the president or who's sitting on the board. It's can we work with the federation.
The 120 million Kenya shillings sponsorship will go into organization of the local track and field events, the national relay trials, as well as the local distance series. Athletics Kenya on its side will be required to work on the challenges which include the ever-increasing doping cases in the country.
It is Kenya to give a new face on that one, that every athlete now must be registered with us. All the agents must register with us. We are going to have our own out-of-competition tests. We'll have to look for our own doping control officers.
One of the conditions is that AK should allow regular audits of its financial statements. With the partnership coming just weeks after AK announced its plan on cutting down costs at the local events, then the real winners here are the athletes.
Everything needs financial support, so it's actually so important, especially for the young ones. I really believe that when we support the young ones, Kenya will be somewhere else in future.
Last year we did not let Kenya down, so hopefully this year, God willing, we're going to do wonders also.
The first Safaricom-sponsored event will be the national trials for the World Relays Championships on the 10th of this month. Lynn Washira, KTN Sports.
Now for Raj Barji, who will be driving a Mitsubishi Evolution 10 for the Delights Rally team in the KCB's 63rd edition of the rally, when Kenya lost her WRC status, a part of their history went with the loss. The current crop of drivers looked up to the likes of Patrick Njiru, Ian Duncan and Juha Kankunen for inspiration. They hope with the current changes, the rallying calendar, the government will do more to ensure that the FIA restore Kenya's lost glory. Hassan Juma reports.
When Kenya lost her World Rally Championship status in 2003, enthusiastic rally fans who later became rally drivers have been left with hopes that one day they'll be in the list of competitors should Kenya's case be considered favorably by the World Motorsports governing body.
When we lost the WRC, we lost a large part of why my generation wanted to rally. But we all stuck with it. We kept with rallying, we kept going. And one thing is that with KCB's involvement in rallying was revived.
For Barji, the government is not doing enough to convince the FIA to include the Safari Rally as part of the WRC series.
Rather than just a speech once a year, they really do need to get behind helping motorsports get back to where it was in terms of having an FIA World Championship event.
The loss of the WRC status meant sponsors pulled out, but a decade later, rallying is slowly getting noticed.
I didn't know this is real sports. It's not just driving a car. So you have to keep yourself very fit. Then also you have to organize yourself for the recce, then all the logistics.
A total of 61 drivers will be fighting it out for the top honors in the 63rd edition of the KCB Safari Rally that starts on Friday. In the rugby scene, the annual Great Reef Tennis-side tournament received a shot in the arm as the Standard Media Group injected 4.8 million shillings towards the Easter holiday tournament, set to kick off tomorrow morning at the Nakuru Athletics Club. Speaking as he received officials from the Nakuru RFC, Standard Group CEO Sam Shole congratulated the club for its efforts in developing sports in the country.
Sports brings out the best in people, and for us at the Standard Group, what we believe is that when people are happy, when people are not thinking about the negative in our society, people start to prosper and to succeed.
We'd really like to appreciate all the work efforts that and partnership that the Standard Media Group has put in place. I think we've been able to achieve a milestone.
36 teams are expected to take part. Hassan Juma, KTN Sports.
Well, it's time to close the bulletin, but let's take some of your comments. We did ask you to send in your comments at the beginning of the bulletin in regards to the Garissa attack. And let me start with Aluda Cyprian here, who says, we need to learn from our past mistakes, but in Kenya, we forget.
And there's a tweet here from Nyokabi Kibugi. You say it's sad that the state of security in our country is where it is now. Condolences to the families affected and stay strong. And one from this is Leo Miswa. You say instead of screaming at the messenger about travel warnings, we should have listened to the message.
There's one here from Stanley Mwewe Robert, who says the government should protect all Kenyans irrespective of their religion and ethnicity. And Palma Paul says the Garissa, let's revisit the security laws soberly. Security management and stakeholders should be involved.
Well, the hashtag tonight was Campus Siege. If you'd like to revisit any of those tweets, you can go ahead and search for that. Thank you for your participation in our bulletin tonight. Jeff Koinange Live is up next, and he's changed topic. Obviously, the events of today are very, very significant. So he'll be hosting Senator Hassan Omar on JKL tonight.
That is one to look out for from us here on Mombasa Road at the Standard Group Center. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Have a good night. My name is Wilson Buru.
And I'm Nancy Kachingira. Marisha Witi was our sign language interpreter. Good night.